Hey guys, welcome back to our channel. So this channel, Everyday Data Science, is all about trying to learn the different concepts involved in data science by practicing a lot of questions. In this video, I'm going to solve this question on LeetCode regarding ad-free sessions and try to walk you through how we can develop solutions to such problems. The difficulty level of this question is easy, and this question has been asked in Amazon interviews over the past couple of years. Okay, let's jump right in. We are given a table called playback with 4 different columns: session ID, customer ID, start time, end time. Session ID is the primary key for this table. Customer ID is the ID of the customer watching this session. The session runs during the inclusive interval between start time and end time. It is guaranteed that start time is less than or equal to end time and that 2 sessions for the same customer do not intersect. Okay, we are also given a second table called ads with 3 different columns: ad ID, customer ID, and timestamp. Ad ID is the primary key for this table. Customer ID is the ID of the customer viewing this ad, and timestamp is the moment of time at which the ad was shown. Okay, we are asked to write a SQL query to report all the sessions that did not get shown any ads. Okay, the order of the result doesn't matter. Okay, let's go through this example. So here we have the playback table and the ads table, right? So there are 5 different sessions and we need to identify on which of the sessions no ad was played, right? So for session ID 1 viewed by customer ID start 1 to 5, right? So if you see in the ads table at 5, and since we are including these session times, right, so it was played, right? So session ID 1 will not be in the output. For 2, right, for 2 customer ID 1, right, and there is nothing, like there is no ad viewed by customer ID 1 which is between 15 to 23, right? So 2 is going to be in the output. Similarly for session ID 3, customer ID 2, right, 10 to 12, right? So 10 to 12, is there any ad viewed by customer ID 2 which is between 10 to 12? No. So 3 is also going to be there. For 4, if you see, for customer ID 2 starts 17, ends 28, right? And at that moment 17, there was a ad which was being viewed by customer ID 2, right? So this is not going to be in the output. And similarly for this, between 2 to 8, so there is nothing for customer ID 2, so this is going to be the output. So 2, 3 and 5 is going to be in the output, and this is how the output looks like, right? So what we can do is, since this information is in 2 different tables, first thing that we can do is we can join these 2 tables, right? Now here joining has 2 on clauses, so basically on something and something else. Why? Because the first thing that we can join is obviously that for different customers, the ads that they were seeing and their timestamp, but we should also make sure that the timestamp at which that customer viewed a particular ad is between, the start time and end time. So let's start developing this and it will be more clear. So from this table called playback aliased as P, let's left join a table called ads aliased as A on P dot customer ID is equal to A dot customer ID and A dot timestamp between P dot start time and P dot end time. So here, if you look at it, let's say the cursor is here, right? So for 1, it will find, okay, there is 1 match in the ads table, and then it will say, okay, so this is okay, right? So on P dot customer ID is equal to A dot customer ID, and also, right, since this is an and, so both of this should be true for finding a match, right? So, and it will say, okay, whether the timestamp, this one is between start time and end time, right? And since this is, so then there is a match, and like whatever values are there in ad ID, customer ID, and timestamp, it is going to be returned in the next 3 columns. Similarly, let's say for same customer ID but a different session, right? So it will find a match in customer ID, but if you see, like 5 is not between this, right? So actually what is happening, even though it is finding a customer ID match, it is not finding that timestamp is between start time and end time. So overall it is not finding a match, and we have this concept should be clear, that if during a join, if let's say it is a left join, right? So the columns that is going to come from this adds table, it will be having null values. Since why? Because we are not able to find a match, right? So similarly, for if you see for customer ID 2, right? So it will find how many two matches, right? But what will happen? So 10 and 12, not between 17. So it will be having null and null. Let me run this and let's see what it returns, right? Obviously, this is not going to be the correct answer because it's not complete yet, but let's see what is happening here, right? Okay, so if you see, right, so the first one, it found a match and therefore we have 1, 1 and 5 from this adds table, right? For this, it didn't find any match. So you see it has null, null and null in these three columns. Similarly, if you see for, session ID 3, right? So null, null, and then for 4, right? And then for 5. Now, if you look at it, all those sessions where there is no ad being played in that particular time slot, right? So it has null values in all these three columns, right? So if you see like for 2, 3, right, we have that, and then for 5 we have null, right? So if you look at this, if we only keep those rows where, let's say, any of this column, let's say customer ID from ads table is null, and then return the session ID, then I think it is going to give us the correct answer. So if we write where a dot customer ID is null, right, and then let's keep only the session ID, right? So I think this looks good. Let me go ahead and run this to see what happens. Okay, so this is accepted. Our output is same as expected output. Let me go ahead and submit it to see if it passes all the test cases. So yep, this passes all the test cases, and this is how I do it. Again, kind of a tricky question, but not very tricky. Or like if you follow the logic step by step, it is going to, you are going to able to do this question. All we had to do was, perform a left join on a certain condition, and another condition, because we need to make sure that timestamp is between start time and end time. And then based on this, we are only keeping those customer IDs where it is null, because this is a condition which we are getting based on this type of join that says that if it is null, then it is a session where no ad was played, right? And then you return the session ID, right? So let me know if there is a better way or a more efficient way in which we can do this. Let the solution be in the comment section below. And until then, I will see you guys in the next video.